1 second. Just let me finish my mint. So a few months ago I fell in love with a TV show called Teen Wolf. I made a video about it and I had a lot of fun making that video. So now that I've fallen in love with yet another TV show, I thought, hey, let's do that again. Let's start at the beginning. Now I was still dealing with Teen Wolf withdrawal when the Handsome Trisha and the Lovely Sjoerd bullied me into watching one of their favorite TV shows, Parks and Recreation. Now, Parks and Recreation is a lot like Teen Wolf in that it has the most unappealing title and premise that anyone could ever have thought of. What sounds even more boring than a show about teenage werewolves? Gee, I don't know, a show about people working in local government? But since I really trust my friends when it comes to TV shows, I started watching it anyway, and I finished the whole thing in under a month. Yeah, that's 7 seasons. I actually think that's a new personal record. When you watch the first season, you might find this hard to believe, but Parks and Recreation is also a lot like Teen Wolf in the sense that it gets a lot better after the first 2 seasons. I mean, I wasn't sold on the first 2 episodes either. In fact, here's a little montage of my watching experience throughout the seasons. This show is weird. This show is funny. This show is amazing. This show is hilarious. This show is over. Just as I did with my Teen Wolf video, I'd like to go over some of the things that I particularly really enjoyed in this show. And as you probably know, Parks and Recreation is a comedy show on NBC. And just like The Office, it follows a mockumentary format, which I wasn't familiar with. And at first, I really thought that it was gonna bug me, because I get kind of annoyed when characters break the 4th wall. I like my 4th wall intact. And it did kind of put me off at first, but once I got used to it, I really saw the added value. And I just really like how every character kind of has his own relationship with the camera and how looking at the camera means something different for each character. I mean, one of the greatest things about this show is obviously the cast of characters. All of the characters are just so great and wonderful and lovable, and I could really relate to most of them. My favorite character is Ben Wyatt's actual dream husband, but I also really love Leslie Knope and everyone really. What might be even better than the characters is the way they interact with each other, because every 2 characters on this show have this unique dynamic between them, whether they're in love or just friends or just colleagues. There are no cookie cutter friendships. Every single relationship is different, and I think that's really realistic. Now, of course, this is a comedy show, so humor is a very important part, and I think this show is hilarious, but it's so much more than that. Like, it's such a positive, heartwarming show, and there's like just enough drama to make you care immensely about the characters, but never so much that it gets you down. There were a couple times where I was feeling really anxious and stressed out, and just watching some episodes of Parks and Recreation just made me feel so relaxed, and it just never failed to put a smile on my face, which I really appreciate. Despite being such a fun and goofy show, there's also some quite important themes being discussed, and there's even some satirical twists sometimes, which I really enjoyed. And also there was just some really awesome feminist stuff going down. Leslie Knope is such a kick-butt female lead. She is just such a great role model, I think, for anyone really. This show deals a lot with standing up to misogynistic bullshit and defying stereotypes and even representing women in politics, which I think is so important. And this show really focuses on that a lot. And they have this whole episode on meninists, and don't even get me started on that one. I'm a very strong believer that every show set in a modern era should at least have a prom episode, a beauty pageant episode, a camping trip episode, and if possible, a musical episode. Parks and Recreation does not disappoint. There is a prom episode, a beauty pageant episode, not one but 2 camping trip episodes. The Johnny Karate episode has a lot of the great things that a musical episode would have. Maybe there's not as much singing in that episode, but there are some pretty awesome musical numbers just spread throughout the show. And finally, I want to talk about something that's also one of my favorite aspects of the show, but it does involve like a mild spoiler. It basically tells you that 2 characters will end up together. If you still plan on watching this show and you're somehow not aware of which characters end up together, then maybe don't watch this last part. Ben and Leslie. There are so many different things about their relationship that I adore. But one of the things I find very interesting is how Ben really kind of embodies the viewer. And I'm not talking about the whole nerdy, look he's one of us thing, although that does play a role in this. But I think Ben falls in love with Leslie and Pawnee the same way the viewer does. When he arrives, he is initially very confused by everything that's going on and he thinks all of these characters are insane. He doesn't really get these people and he just feels very out of place. And I think in the first season of Parks and Recreation, watching it is very much like that. Then, as he gets to know Leslie and the other characters, he gradually starts to recognize real, admirable qualities in what at first just looked like insanity. When I was watching this show, the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing was kind of really relevant, and I saw all of these tweets about people who felt really uncomfortable with the idea that young people would see 50 Shades of Grey and look at the relationship between Christian and Anna as an example of what a healthy relationship should be like. Just reading those things, I couldn't help but think like this is the perfect example of a healthy relationship. Ben and Leslie are the perfect example. They mutually respect and support each other. They don't necessarily agree on everything, but they're passionate about the same things. Although they both make sacrifices for each other, they never hold each other back, which I think is really important. And they're an amazing team. They love working together and they love being together. I think it's very apparent that they're both very much in love with each other's strengths. Like, all of Ben's sexy fantasies about Leslie involve her kicking ass and ruling the world and being in various positions of power. And I think that really speaks volumes. Ron has this line in one of the episodes where he says to Ben, "You and Leslie like to hold hands and jump off cliffs together into the great unknown." And I think that describes their relationship perfectly. Now, I could go on for several hours about how much I adored this show, but I think this video has probably already been going on for way too long, so I'm gonna wrap it up for you here. Basically, if you haven't watched this show yet, please go watch it. It's so good, it'll make you happy, it'll solve all of your problems, and it will change your life. And in the profound and inspiring words of Benjamin Wyatt, calculator! Bye, bye, little Sebastian. I miss you in the saddest fashion. Bye, bye, little Sebastian. You're 5,000 candles in the wind.